should anything untoward ever happen, people tend to think, well, the FAA is not going to come after me. It's okay. That's not your problem. It's your insurance company. If you run it out of fuel, if you put it someplace you're not supposed to put it, whatever, and you need to make an insurance claim, they're going to say, oh, you violated 91.3 and you violated 91.13 and you violated 103. We're not covering that. This episode is brought to you by Rexair Professional Pilot Academy of Sebring, Florida. Florida has been the go-to flight training destination for nearly a century. Rexair is a soup-to-nuts outfit that's got housing, classroom space. They fly RV-12 aircraft that are brand new factory built. They've got everything a flight student needs to be successful. Rexair is a bit different than most academies in that it's intentionally small. So there's more one-on-one CFI to student activity, and since the students all live together, the students all support each other. The goal of Rexair and their technologically advanced aircraft is to do the best they can do to help you get where you want to be for your professional flying life. So give them a call, 309-397-6191, or drop them a line, info@rexair.net. Rexair Professional Pilot Academy, Sebring, Florida. Mr. Brown, we recently did an episode, a stunningly scintillating episode that I watched myself several times, about regulations, specifically 91.3 and 91.13. And I thought, in keeping with the threes, because I think there's a law about threes, we should do 91.103 about pre-flight actions, because pilots do have to go through a pre-flight thing. And I'll start it with this. All we're required to know is everything. That's all. It's the FAA is very specific about this. We just have to know everything about the flight. That's so hard, Pat?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, that falls under 91.103, as you said, pre-flight action. And speaking about pre-flight action, I think like and subscribe would fall under that, wouldn't you?
I think it's a moral imperative. If you don't click that button, bad things could happen.
Yeah. So 91.103, I will read just a little bit of it here. 91.103 pre-flight action. Each pilot in command shall, before beginning a flight, become familiar with all available information concerning that flight. And then it says this information must include, and then it goes into some things like weather reports, forecasts, fuel requirements, alternatives available if the planned flight can't be completed, any known traffic delays, et cetera, et cetera. Also talks about runway lengths of intended use and takeoff and landing distance information. That's kind of paraphrasing it, but that's where that NW craft acronym comes from, that so many students are learning these days. And I'm not a big acronym fan, but there are some that are helpful. I'm Safe is a good one. PAVE is a good one. NW Craft is actually a pretty good one if you really want to make sure that you can defend your actions should something go wrong. And it's questioned, brought into question as to whether you did your due diligence under 91.103.
Well, and it becomes important because if you get ramp checked and you're flying a Cherokee 140 and you've got your 3 football teammates with you, and you don't meet weight and balance when the inspector, well, you probably should have known that before. Or if you're on that cross-country trip from North Carolina to Florida and you're pretty sure you don't need to stop for fuel and you run out a little before your destination, again, that's something you should have known before you ever left the ground.
Yeah, and I mean, just because literally everything isn't listed under Part A and B of 91.103, the intent is clear that all you need to know is everything. I'll give you an example where that bit me several years ago. We were flying to Oshkosh, and normally we stopped in Mena, Arkansas for gas, and then we'd stop another third of the way and change pilots. And there was 3 of us in the airplane. and we go into Fond du Lac. And we were flying into Mina, and we landed, and we found out that the FBO had recently started closing on Sundays. We happened to be flying up on a Sunday. Okay, well, there wasn't. I suppose if we checked the NOTAMs, we would have known that. And then, if I to continue to tell on myself a little bit, flying to Sun and Fun several years ago, we had a fuel stop planned, and the fuel truck had not made it to the airport that week, and they didn't have any gas. So fortunately, we had plenty to make it to another airport, topped off, and our trip went on without a hitch. But here are two examples where um, if there were NOTAMs, I didn't see them, um, and I'm generally pretty careful about checking those things. But if I simply call the FBO and said, "Are you still open 7 days a week?" or the other FBO and said, "I'm assuming you have gas," it would have saved us some embarrassment. I'll just put it that way. Is that part of all available information? I would argue that it probably is.
Well, being the editorial type, I'm going to suggest there's a couple specific words here that people should key on when they're reading regulations. And yes, you should read regulations. You shouldn't just let Pat Brown do it for you. Shall or must
Yeah,
are not suggestions. This is what you're going to do if you're going to sit in the left seat. Conversely, shall not or may not. Similarly, they're being pretty specific. And when they say all available information, which is what we're responsible for, I like boiling it down to everything. That's all. But your point is a good one. Was that information available? Yes, it was. They're not saying where it's available from. You had a phone, there's a NOTAM. You could have checked with the Chamber of Commerce, whatever. You could have gotten your weather briefing. If that was available, you were responsible to have it. And I know this seems like it seems like I'm being a cranky old man, and I might be. It's possible. But you and I have been in this business long enough to know people who have kind of run afoul of these things because they're doing something that, well, I'm pretty sure I can do that.
yeah,
No, that runway was closed today and it was no Tam, and you should have known it. The big X on the end of the runway should have clued you in.
it's a
But
dead
literally,
giveaway.
people do that. They land on closed runways. They go to closed airports. People go to Sun and Fun and say, I'm just going to be there a couple days, but I'm going to depart Thursday at 3 o'clock. No, you're not. The airspace is closed.
Yeah, if you go into Lakeland, you're not going to leave at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That is guaranteed. So, anyway, all available information, while it is really broad, they really do mean all available information. And if you kind of stick with the NW Craft um, acronym, you're gonna cover most of your bases, but there's still that chance that you might have missed something, like the fact that the fuel truck didn't get there on Tuesday when it was supposed to.
But in all honesty, having all information available to you is easier than it's ever been.
Yes.
There's a computer at the FBO or the flight school that has an internet connection. You probably have a phone or an iPad. We've got satellite communications now. It's not like when you and I had to walk into a stuffy little FISDO or a flight service station and look at the dot matrix weather charts on the wall, figure it out. The information is there. It's really easy to get. We
Yeah.
just need to get in the habit of actually going through that process. And it might start the night before our flight, but you really should be into it. And some of it you can simplify. You and me, Pat, being closest personal friends of all time. If we flew together frequently in the same airplane, we might just do a weight and balance for you and I and this fuel load, and we're good. We're covered because none of that changes. Well, I
Yeah.
might have an extra piece of pie and I might weigh more, but the basics.
The basics. That's basics. So, folks, listen. All available information means all available information, and if you're acting as PIC, the reg that I think is 91.3 that talks about being responsible for the operation of the aircraft, solely and fully responsible for it. that means all available information, and it's up to you or us, as the case may be, as pilots in command, to make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. So,
I'll leave you with one parting thought, by the way, because that's genius stuff. But should anything untoward ever happen, people tend to think, well, the FAA is not going to come after me. It's okay. That's not your problem. It's your insurance company. Because if you run it out of fuel, if you put it someplace you're not supposed to put it, whatever, and you need to make an insurance claim, they're going to say, oh, you violated 91.3. You were not responsible for the airplane. And you violated 91.13 because you were careless with the airplane. And you violated 103 because you didn't have all the available information. We're not covering that. And now you're in real trouble. So the best reason is just so you don't go broke.
yeah, for no other reason is fear of the insurance company.
Hey, Pat, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I think this is important stuff. And, I'd like to keep the dollars I have. So I'll see you back here next week. We'll do this all over again with maybe even a more fascinating topic. And I hope we see the viewers back here.
All right, adios, pal.